So, hi everybody. My name is Claudia Hamp, and I'm a member of the board of the Mill Valley Historical Society. Let me first take a minute to ask you to turn off your cell phones. Good. All right. We present this terrific First Wednesday program in collaboration with the Mill Valley Library, and in particular in collaboration with the wonderful archivist from the History Room, Jennifer Volant, who's in the back of the room right now. I would like to especially thank Jennifer and the library for all that they do to make this program as great as it is. You who are members of the Historical Society and familiar with the Mill Valley Historical Society Review, this is the fabulous magazine that you all receive in the mail as one of the perks of your membership. It's really great. So tonight, we are honored to welcome Rob Elias, and he is the esteemed editor of the Mill Valley Historical Society Review. Yeah. Rob is Emeritus Professor of Law and Politics at the University of San Francisco. He has authored or edited a dozen books, including 6 baseball books. Baseball and the American Dream, Major League Rebels, The Empire Strikes Out, The Deadly Tools of Ignorance, Baseball Rebels, and his most recent book, Dangerous Danny Gardello, which won the Seymour Medal from the Society of American Baseball Research for the best baseball biography or history of 2025. He grew up playing baseball in New York and played semi-pro ball in Western Pennsylvania. The title of our program this evening is Small Town Hardball as Americana, Mill Valley ball teams when baseball was king. As Rob has said, the history of small town baseball is a sports story, but also a unique glimpse at American culture in days gone by. Please let's all give a warm Mill Valley welcome to Rob Elias.
Yeah, I think so. Can you hear me in the back? Yes?
If you need it closer, I can bring it out.
I think it's all right.
All right.
Yeah. Okay, so thank you, Claudia. And thanks to all of you for coming out this evening. I know we're competing with the World Cup, so I appreciate that. I also like to thank the Mill Valley Historical Society for inviting me. And and the Mill Valley Library for providing this venue, and also to thank Jennifer Volant for some technical support. Okay, I have to speak into the microphone. Okay. Okay, so of course, my talk this evening focuses on baseball. But for the next 45 minutes or so, I'd like to get you thinking about the game not only as a sport, but also as a reflection of U.S. society and history. That is, baseball as Americana. Besides playing the sport, baseball has also represented certain values and practices in American culture. While baseball regards itself as the national pastime, football and basketball have provided strong competition for at least 40 years. But especially between the 1890s and the 1960s, baseball was king in America. Not merely the most popular sport for both fans and players alike, to most people, baseball was America. It represented the nation's values and helped assimilate waves of new immigrants. The baseball craze extended far beyond the professional leagues down to the local level. Virtually every U.S. town had at least one team of adult amateurs or semi-pro players, usually several, sponsored by the town itself or by local businesses. Town rivalries were fierce, ball games were a major entertainment, and local residents flocked to support their local clubs. Mill Valley and other Marin towns were no exception. The history of small-town baseball is a sports story, but also a unique glimpse at American culture in days gone by. In the early 20th century, baseball was more than a game for children, but rather a central part of adult society. Its terminology infiltrated the language. It was the theme of a growing sub-literature, and songs were written about it. Newspapers, sporting good businesses, railroads, hotels, and other businesses found that they had a stake in its success. It was equated with Americanism, democracy, and the health and well-being of both young and old. It was viewed as a vehicle of assimilation for the foreign-born and an antidote to revolution. It was ingrained into the American psyche. According to historian John Thorne, the national pastime became a great repository of national ideals, the symbol of all that was good in American life. Fair play, the rule of law, equal opportunity, the brotherhood of man, and more. Arguably, the game has contained values that comprise the basic ingredients of the American dream. As Walt Whitman observed, well, it's our game. That's the chief fact in connection with it. America's game. It has the snap, go, and fling of the new American atmosphere. It belongs as much to our institutions, fits into them as significantly as our Constitution's laws, is just as important in the sum total of our historic life. And Whitman had much more to say about baseball as well. Baseball has been a barometer for the health of American society. Beginning in the late 1800s, as industrialization and railroads connected the country, small towns began to field highly competitive semi-pro or amateur teams. Wealthy local businessmen, politicians, or civic groups sponsored these clubs to boost their town's profile, draw crowds, and attract tourism. The teams would often play touring Major League barnstormers, giving locals a chance to see professional talent firsthand. As Jim Baumer suggests in his book, When Towns Had Teams, baseball was the pulsing social heart of rural America. Games served as massive community gatherings where neighbors met to see and be seen, and entire towns would shut down to picnic, socialize, and cheer on local factory workers, farmers, and blacksmiths, battling neighborhood rivals for regional pride. Fans arrived on horseback, in wagons, or on foot to line the outfield fences, or park their cars along the foul lines. The atmosphere was a mix of a country fair and a patriotic celebration. The best players became hometown heroes. A winning baseball team put a town on the map. A top-notch ball club was a point of immense civic pride and stimulated local businesses. For ambitious and talented young athletes, town baseball was often the first rung on the ladder to professional baseball. Despite segregation, the ball field often helped break down ethnic and racial barriers, bringing together workers from different backgrounds. While some corporations used teams for social control of their labor force, baseball nevertheless provided an essential, affordable escape from the demanding realities of working in mills or factories. The coalfield baseball leagues were the widespread semi-pro and amateur baseball circuits that thrived in Appalachian mining towns in West Virginia, Virginia, and Kentucky from the early 1900s through the mid-1950s. Here are a couple of other Southern industrial baseball leagues. Industrial leagues emerged among the steel mills around Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, featuring clubs such as the Homestead Steel Mill Team and the Bethlehem Steel Mill Team. Here's another semi-pro league in New England in the 1920s. And still more industrial leagues in cities such as Madison, Columbus, Mansfield, and Berkeley, California. Baseball was played extensively in the U.S. military during World War I and World War II, although sometimes led by pro ball players drafted into the wars. Most players were amateurs in the thriving leagues both stateside and in Europe. In the 1940s, the All-American Girls Professional Baseball League was established, creating women's hardball teams, mostly in Midwest towns. While these were paid pro players, their ranks were drawn from an even bigger phenomenon, the flourishing of women's softball teams and leagues in the 1930s, which featured thousands of adult women players and huge crowds that turned out to watch these talented amateur and semi-pro players sponsored by towns or local businesses. And of course, the breeding grounds for all the players who eventually played adult baseball or softball was America's sandlots. Long before Little League began organizing youth baseball, kids organized themselves and swarmed the baseball sandlots for pickup games. Rarely do we see that anymore. While baseball was played in Marin County earlier in the 1860s, the Marin Journal documented the first formal baseball team, the San Rafael Baseball Club, in October of 1869. Tomales formed a team in 1870. Other teams quickly followed in the 1870s with names such as the Rising Stars, Alerts, Marins, Mutuals, Growlers, and Snarlers. By the 1880s, most Marin towns and sub-communities had teams, such as the Tiburon Pelicans, the Fairfax Merchants, as well as the Sausalitos, the El Montes, the Nicasios, the Novatos, the Mill Valleys, and the Ross Valleys. Even early on, rivalries were fierce yet friendly, with the players often sharing lunch or dinner together after the game, with the losing team paying. By the early 1900s, baseball was woven into the fabric of local communities. Many more adult teams arose from the 1920s to the 1950s, following the national trend of virtually every U.S. town having at least one club representing it in the so-called Bush Leagues that organized the clubs and the games. Teams were sponsored by towns or by community and fraternal organizations such as the Elks, Eagles, and Native Sons, as well as by businesses, military units, and fire departments. By the 1910s, Marin had its own well-established league. Although a few of the following slides, as well as this one, reference school teams, many of which still exist, I'm mainly interested in adult, amateur, or semi-pro baseball teams, which have mostly vanished. Here are some teams from defunct Marin military academies in the early 1900s. I didn't even know these places existed. As far back as 1890, local newspapers reported games played by the San Rafael Baseball Club at the East Side grounds near today's Montecito Shopping Center. In 1902, the team was incorporated, according to the Marin Journal, quote, to promote the American game of baseball in the city of San Rafael, close quote. Here's the team in 1905. Here's a grand ball of dancing and entertainment sponsored by the San Rafael Baseball Stars in 1908. Here again is the San Rafael Baseball Club, also known as the Regulars, in 1911, about which the Marin Tocsin reported that, quote, quite 1,000 baseball fanatics and critics turned out to see the San Rafael Regulars lock horns with a picked team composed of stars of greater and lesser magnitude, close quote. In 1912, the San Rafael Regulars won the Marin County Baseball Championship. But in 1913, this team, led by manager Alf Barrow on the far left, lost the championship to the Mill Valley Club. Whoop, whoop. The semi-pro or Bush League circuit was covered that year in a San Francisco Call sports column entitled Bush Baseball Bingles by Big Bill. Don't ask. Players changed teams frequently, even within a season. For example, in the left photo, the player kneeling on the far right in that photo wears the uniform of the rival San Rafael Nationals team. In 1913, Tiburon had a team called the Corinthians Baseball Club. Here's the Corte Madera Fire Department team that same year. The San Rafael High School baseball team also began in 1913. Here are the Novato Colts semi-pro team in 1915. Even up Mount Tam in the forest, teams formed such as this ragtag bunch at the Big Trees Hunters Camp in 1918. The guy on the far left is holding a baseball bat. That's as much as it resembles a baseball team, but it was a baseball team. On March 13, 1916, the San Francisco Chronicle reported that, quote, for the first time in the history of the state prison across the bay in Marin County, the convict baseballers were yesterday permitted to play against an outside team. And while they didn't win, they made a respectable showing. Here we see two photos of games in progress at the prison in the 1920s. They didn't do many road games. This and other Sausalito ball teams played at the East Fort Baker Field in the 1920s. This ancient letter was an appeal by the Larkspur town officials to support the creation of a town baseball field in 1922. Here's the Stinson Beach baseball team in 1924. The Marin Junior College baseball team began in 1926. Also in 1926, Point Reyes baseball received an unlikely visitor. America's most famous ball player, Babe Ruth, was in San Francisco. He learned that Marin resident and future New York Yankee Hall of Famer Lefty Gomez would be pitching for the Point Reyes Buttermakers against a San Francisco team. Taking the ferry to Sausalito and then the train to Point Reyes, Ruth arrived in time for the festivities, and the local folks witnessed a great moment in the county's baseball history when Ruth played in the game. The next year, Ruth set the Major League single-season record of 60 home runs, and a few years later, Gomez would become his Yankee teammate. As we'll see, Gomez will show up again in Mill Valley before leaving for the majors. Here are the San Anselmo Wildcats in 1927. As I mentioned, every town had one. The San Anselmo Merchants baseball team appears here in 1935, and businesses such as Jack's Drug Store sponsored other clubs in the 1920s and 1930s. In the 1930s, Kentfield had an athletic club team and a fire department team. Here in the mid-1930s, we see promotions for games between San Quentin Prison Baseball All-Stars and outside challengers, the Lefty Reyes All-Stars and the Shell Cooper Stars. Japanese players residing temporarily on Angel Island formed baseball teams in the 1930s. Not a very clear photo, I'm afraid. An example of a business club, here's the Northwest Pacific Railroad team, operating out of Tiburon in 1932. At a Tiburon baseball field in 1940, hitting over the railroad cars was a home run. The Nicasio baseball team appears here in 1946 with the St. Mary's Church in the background. That's still there. In 1950, the Palace Market sponsored a baseball team in Point Reyes Station. Another popular baseball field in Marin was Judge Field in Tiburon, shown here in the 1950s. On land donated by San Rafael businessman Jacob Albert, the Albert Field baseball grounds were built in 1951. Host to thousands of ball games and other events, Albert Field is a charming throwback to the days of small bandbox ballparks, where the game was played close to the fans, where the cost of a ticket, a drink, and a hot dog was affordable, where the players were thankful to the fans for coming out to see them play, and where the team was a real part of the community. It was also the first Marin ball field to feature night baseball under the lights. In 1953, professional baseball players from the Bay Area came to Albert Park in San Rafael for a March of Dimes charity all-star game against Marin semi-pro all-stars. Among the major leaguers were Billy Martin from the New York Yankees and Mike Garcia from the Cleveland Indians. The Marin ball players came from teams including the Bartenders, the Tiburon Old Timers, and the Mill Valley Merchants. Marin teams got to be so good that for years the top clubs chose their best players, formed all-star squads, and invited other top amateur clubs to Albert Park for games. In 1954, a team from El Cerrito, featuring future Major League stars Frank Robinson, Veda Pinson, Kurt Flood, Ernie Broglio, and Tommy Harper, made a memorable visit. From the 1930s to the 1950s, barnstorming teams traveled around the country playing local semi-pro and town teams. Besides Major League barnstormers headed by stars such as Babe Ruth, Lou Gehrig, Satchel Paige, and Bob Feller, other barnstormer clubs were also quite talented. Among the most famous was the House of David baseball team, which played highly anticipated games at Albert Field. And when the West Coast Negro Baseball League collapsed in 1946, the San Francisco Sea Lions became a full-time black barnstorming team challenging Marin County teams. Besides playing against barnstorming clubs, some Marin ball players became barnstormers themselves. While Albert Field gathered some of the best Marin ball players, the talent was spread throughout the county. The unofficial historian for local semi-pro baseball, John Coleman, had endless stories about the players and their lives. The team in Tomales, he recalled, had to schedule their games early in the day because at 3 p.m. many of the players had to milk the cows at the Marin dairy farms where they worked. In the peak years in the 1950s, when Coleman played and coached, life in Marin was simpler and certainly more rural. The local dairy farms and the Northwest Pacific Railroad supplied many of the blue-collar jobs. Sunday games were particularly special because baseball was an integral part of the local social life, Coleman recalled. And gosh, we had some great players. So what about amateur baseball in Mill Valley in particular? Again, it includes various school and youth teams, but what about adult semi-pro clubs? Here's a pre-1900 game, possibly played at the future site of Boyle Park. As with other Marin towns, Mill Valley was playing baseball as early as the 1870s. Here are older boys, or possibly young men, in baseball uniforms sitting outside Lockwood Pharmacy, currently the Equator Coffee Shop in downtown Mill Valley. Mill Valley girls were playing baseball in the early 1900s as well. Here, Helvetia Mora crouching, Victoria Anderson in the center, and an unidentified boy are playing baseball at the corner of Lovell and Summit Avenues. In 1906, Carmelita Boyle donated land to Mill Valley for a park. Baseball was played at what soon became Boyle Park as early as 1908 and no later than 1910. The Bass Huter Baseball Club, sponsored by a San Francisco-based paint company, signed a contract that year to play games at Boyle Park, which quickly became a hub for organized Bay Area baseball. Company owner Huter was a Mill Valley resident who used his team to promote his business and community recreation. The club remained active through the 1920s, helping to establish a legacy of merchant-sponsored amateur baseball. Here's the Summit School baseball team in 1910. Outside of school, other youth teams were formed long before Little League first appeared in Mill Valley. Here's the Laverne baseball team in 1914. The so-called Garden of Allah mansion and retreat was built for real estate developer Ralston White in the 1910s. A ball player himself, White loved to invite friends to his estate for baseball games on the front lawn in the 1920s. Distinguished by its grandstand, the Boyle Park playing field was nevertheless rough in the early years. It was the breeding ground for players who became professionals in the Pacific Coast League on teams such as the San Francisco Seals, the Sacramento Senators, and the Hollywood Stars. On October 4th, 1924, the Mill Valley Record reported that, quote, "At last our little town of Mill Valley walloped the big town of San Rafael on the latter's home grounds by the tune of 10-6. For the first time in many years, manager Bernstein has brought the championship to Mill Valley," close quote. Later, in 1929, certificates were issued to Mill Valley baseball team players for winning the Marin County and other championships. Competing against other Marin and Sonoma towns was a matter of local pride. Here's the ad for a Mill Valley game against the Petaluma Club in 1925. Later that year, on October 17th, a Mill Valley Record article reported that the Mill Valley team, quote, "distinguished itself this summer and closed the season last Sunday with a succession of triumphal victories. The record shows 11 scores in favor of Mill Valley, one after the other, including a game with invincible San Anselmo. All honor to San Anselmo, for it has had the reputation of being the one team in the region which no other team could beat. But Mill Valley won the score, even with the game at the stadium, which is San Anselmo's own ground." For decades, Boyle Park hosted hundreds of games and hundreds of Mill Valley young men on American Legion teams, coached for many years by Jim Langdon. Here are two such clubs in 1928, one of which became a quarterfinalist in the U.S. Baseball Championships. Here's the Tam High baseball team in 1929. It began at least as far back as 1917, when Gerard "Pop" Wendering became the coach. He led the team for nearly 30 years, winning North Bay League championships and turning out several professional ball players, including major leaguers Sam Chapman and Art Shalleck. Although the team was formed years earlier, here are the Mill Valley Merchants in the 1930s. A regular feature at Boyle Park and other Marin County fields, they played in the San Francisco Winter League and the Marin County League into the 1960s. An incubator for top-tier players, their stars included Art Shalleck, a future New York Yankee, and Tony Freitas, a future Cincinnati Red. The Mill Valley Merchants, sometimes also called the Vultures, were captured in this photo at Boyle Park in the 1930s or 1940s with Buena Vista Avenue in the background. Pop Burns on the left was a popular manager at the time. Here are more Mill Valley school teams. The Old Mill School baseball team appears here in the 1930s. The Park School featured these teams in 1940 and 1958. Featuring young Mill Valley women, here's the Tam Park School baseball team in 1942. Mill Valley adult ball players appear here on an unspecified field, likely in the Bayfront Park area in the 1940s. Besides the American Legion, the Veterans of Foreign Wars were another military veteran group that promoted baseball around the country. On the left is the Mill Valley VFW team from 1952. On the right, Joe Clyde of the VFW Burgermeisters receives the game ball from Mill Valley Mayor Miriam Cummings on opening day 1953 at Boyle Park. Mill Valley Little League began in 1954 with only 2 teams. In 1955, this Lions Club was one of 4 teams in the league. Little League took over Boyle Park, dividing it into the 2 fields we know today. The Boyle Grandstand was torn down and replaced with new dugouts and stands. The semi-pro teams and games shifted over to the Bayfront area. To help dedicate the league and the park, the New York Yankees star Joe DiMaggio flew into Mill Valley by helicopter and delivered a speech and batting tips to Little Leaguers at Boyle Park on opening day. Long remembered by local residents, DiMaggio played briefly for the Mill Valley Merchants in the early 1930s. So our audience here today may include people from Mill Valley or elsewhere in Marin who live the history I'm outlining here and should be the ones actually giving this talk, either as a player or as a fan. But if so, I hope to hear from you in the Q&A at the end of the talk. But short of that, I started looking through the oral histories that the Historical Society has put together over the years. And what I found is in one after another, baseball kept coming up. And it seemed like baseball seemed pretty key to the way in which people thought about their growing up in either Mill Valley or in surrounding towns. So, for example, as Thomas Bickersheft recalled, quote, "I played with the Mill Valley team when I was 16 years old. We built Boyle Park. We got the land from Ida Boyle and built the bleachers. We had a hell of a good team. We used to get big leaguers to come over and play. My brother would pass the hat. Ralston White made a baseball diamond above his house, and he supplied the balls, bats, and gloves. I had a rifle arm, and one time I threw to Ralston and broke his little finger. It was always crooked after that, but he was so proud of it." Bickerstaff went on to play ball with the U.S. Army in France during World War I, and then played independent pro baseball for 10 years in San Diego, Texas, Missoula, and Portland. When Fred Bagshaw was asked what did people do in Mill Valley for pleasure and recreation in the town's early days, his response was, "I'd say the baseball games were the big outside interest." Marion Kleiss Andre remembered attending ball games in Mill Valley, adding that we used to also go over to Tiburon to watch. The Mill Valley teams played over there as well. Fred Martin began playing baseball in Mill Valley Grammar School and looked up to the Tam High team. When Mr. Wendering was there, he said, they always had championship baseball teams. In 1928, Fred began playing with the American Legion team. We played over in Oakland, Emeryville, around the county, then Sacramento. We beat a San Diego ball club, and then one in Long Beach, Salt Lake, and Colorado Springs. I played in the outfield. We were league champions in the West. They gave us medals, and if we had beaten New Orleans the next day, they would have sent us to see the World Series. George Pimlott recalled playing baseball at Boyle Park. Quote, "We called our team the Tamils." Although his friend Tony Freitas later became a major league pitcher, quote, "He wasn't good enough to make our team. I used to kid him about that. We had quite a few good baseball players in town. Tommy Bickerstaff was second to none. Boyle Park just got gradually built up," Pimlott continued. "Originally, there were two great big ditches on either side. Two creeks came together right behind the grandstand. The ditches were so deep that they filled up the first one with a lot of old cars and covered it over." So that's what's by Boyle Park right now. Who knew? Peter Brindley recalled that living next to Boyle Park was very fortunate, and everything basically revolved around sports activities. We seemed to always have 20 or 30 kids down at Boyle Park for pickup baseball games. Mill Valley had a semi-pro team, the Mill Valley Merchants, and also the Mill Valley VFW team, and they played at Boyle Park every Sunday. There was a large grandstand, and the fellows back from World War II played in a league that included Tiburon, San Rafael, Richmond, and San Francisco. These games would be very highly attended, probably 500 or 600 people at every game. People would park their cars up along Buena Vista right in center field. I was a bat boy for them for 4 years. Former Mill Valley pitcher and longtime San Rafael High School baseball coach Keith Frazier remembered, quote, "A great game we played against San Rafael, facing San Rafael's Bobby DeRosa, who had won all 8 of his games. I had a 7-0 record, but I was supposed to be at a Sunday wedding, so we tried to move the game to Friday night. But San Rafael refused, and the game was played as scheduled before a packed Mill Valley crowd. The San Rafael team bench jockeys kept hollering at me, 'You still have time to make the wedding.' But Mill Valley had the last laugh when it rallied to win a 5-3 thriller for happy hometown fans." From its earliest days, Mill Valley has distinguished itself as a baseball town. Besides generating a sense of community, the sport has produced considerable baseball talent. If you're a young baseball player who has some talent, then you dream of playing Major League Baseball. But the odds are against you. You might make it onto your high school team, but only 0.5% of high school players ever get drafted into Major League Baseball. Only 7.3% of high schoolers play in college. If you make it into college ball, you still have only a 2% chance of going pro, much less making it to the majors. Nevertheless, an impressive number of Mill Valley ball players have succeeded at each of these levels. Ball players who have played Mill Valley Little League or softball, played at Tam High, or played Mill Valley semi-pro baseball have gone on to play NCAA baseball in college, including at these California and out-of-state schools. Although they didn't make it all the way to the majors, at least 20 Mill Valley players have become professionals, playing in the minors for Major League Baseball or independent teams, as shown here. Several early ones were the product of the heyday of Mill Valley semi-pro baseball. 10 Mill Valley players have made it to Major League Baseball as players, coaches, or scouts. The earliest was Tony Freitas. Growing up in Mill Valley, he played sandlot ball and then for Tam High in the 1920s. After high school, Freitas played for the Mill Valley Merchants in San Francisco's Winter League. Among the semi-pro games he pitched at Boyle Park was a memorable contest against future Hall of Famer Lefty Gomez, for whom another baseball field was dedicated in Fairfax. In 1928, Freitas joined the minor leagues and became a major leaguer with when the Philadelphia Athletics signed him in 1932. He played several seasons for the Cincinnati Reds beginning in 1934, but ultimately returned to the West Coast for the Pacific Coast League, where he won a remarkable 342 games and was voted the best minor league pitcher of all time. The most accomplished Tam High player in MLB was Sam Chapman. Born in Tiburon, he grew up playing sandlot ball in Mill Valley, then attended Tam High, lettering in 5 sports. Chapman played for the Mill Valley Merchants semi-pro team. He became an All-American in both baseball and football at UC Berkeley. In 1938, he became a major leaguer with the Philadelphia Athletics, where he became an all-star and frequent MVP candidate. He was traded to the Cleveland Indians in 1951 and was voted into multiple baseball and sports Hall of Fame. A veteran of Mill Valley sandlot baseball in the 1920s, Art Shalleck became a star pitcher and first baseman for Tam High. In 1941, he began playing for the semi-pro San Rafael Merchants and then the San Mateo Blues. After military service, he joined the College of Marin team and then pitched for the semi-pro South San Francisco Moffat Mantecas. The Brooklyn Dodgers signed him into the minor leagues in 1947. In 1951, Shalleck was traded to the New York Yankees, becoming a major leaguer later that year. In 1955, he joined the Baltimore Orioles, ending his major league career the next year. Until he passed away a year ago at the age of 101, Art was the oldest living former major leaguer. A slick fielding shortstop, Joe DeMaestri played on Marin Sandlot and American Legion teams. Starring for the Tam High team, he then played with the San Anselmo Merchants semi-pro team, following in his father's footsteps. The Boston Red Sox signed him into the minor leagues in 1947, and he became a major leaguer in 1950 with the Chicago White Sox. He was traded to the St. Louis Browns in 1952, and then again to the Philadelphia Athletics in 1953. Remaining with the Athletics when they moved to Kansas City, he became an All-Star in 1957. In 1960, he was traded to the New York Yankees, won a World Series ring in 1961, and retired the following year after 11 big league seasons. In the late 1940s, Carl Olson was considered a surefire major leaguer. Born in Ross, he played semi-pro and American Legion ball in Mill Valley, and then starred at Tam High. In 1948, the Boston Red Sox signed him into the minor leagues, converting him from a shortstop into an outfielder. Boston elevated him to the major leagues in 1951. His promising career was stalled by military service and an injury, but he returned to the Red Sox in 1953. He was traded to the Washington Senators in 1955 and then to the Detroit Tigers in 1957, where injuries cut short his major league career after 6 years. Beginning his baseball journey on Scrabble dirt fields at Alto School, Fred Mack pitched for some of the greatest Mill Valley Little League teams as a youth. He then starred on the TAM High team, pitching the team to league championships in the early 1960s. Although he played baseball at the College of Marin and Chico State, an arm injury kept him out of professional baseball. He became the TAM High baseball coach from 1973 to 1980. Then he made it to the major leagues as a catching instructor and then as a scout for the Philadelphia Phillies for 17 years, followed by 6 more years scouting for the Houston Astros. In Fred's oral history, he noted how big semi-pro baseball was in Mill Valley. He also remembered, quote, Red Taylor, who coached a lot of us kids. When he passed away, we knew his mother, Ma Taylor, loved baseball, so the guys on the Mill Valley semi-pro team would pick her up and take her to the Sunday game and bring her home to acknowledge what Red Taylor had done for us. That was old-timey Mill Valley. TAM High pitching star Will Schock was drafted by the San Francisco Giants in 1982, but joined the UC Berkeley baseball team instead. He was elevated to the minor leagues when the Oakland Athletics signed him in 1987. He pitched in the minors for them and the Cincinnati Reds for 5 years, reaching AAA just short of the majors. He nevertheless joined the major leagues when the Athletics signed him as a scout for the next 2 decades. He was later inducted into the Marin Athletic Hall of Fame. Another TAM High pitching star, Brian Price, turned down offers from the Minnesota Twins in 1980 and the Baltimore Orioles in 1983 to play UC Berkeley baseball. He became a minor leaguer when the California Angels signed him in 1984. In 1986, he was traded to the Seattle Mariners system, where he reached AAA. He made it to the major leagues when he was hired by the Mariners as head pitching coach in 2001, and then joined the Arizona Diamondbacks in 2006, winning his second Coach of the Year award. After 3 years as the Cincinnati Reds pitching coach, he became the team's manager from 2014 to 2018, when he returned to coach pitching for the Philadelphia Phillies in 2019 and 2020. A senior advisor to the San Diego coaching staff in 2022, he became the San Francisco Giants pitching coach in 2024. After playing Mill Valley Little League, Noah Jackson played ball at a Marin Catholic high school and was recruited by the University of Arkansas in 2000. After transferring to UC Berkeley to play outfield and first base from 2001 to 2003, he was drafted into the minor leagues by the Chicago Cubs. He joined the major leagues as a San Diego Padres scout from 2008 to 2012. After becoming baseball coach at Cal and the University of the Pacific, he returned to Major League Scouting again in 2024 for the Boston Red Sox. A baseball star at TAM High, Nigel Morgan was also a highly talented hockey player. Rejecting a 1998 minor league baseball offer from the Colorado Rockies, he resumed baseball again when the Pittsburgh Pirates made him a minor leaguer in 2002. And then a major league outfielder in 2007. He moved to the Washington Nationals in 2009 and then to the Milwaukee Brewers in 2011. Between 2013 and 2017, he jumped to play pro ball abroad in the Japanese Nippon League, Korean Baseball League, Mexican League, and the Venezuelan Winter League before retiring from baseball. Growing up in Strawberry, Adam Harban played Little League in Mill Valley and travel ball at TAM High. Besides playing, he was drawn to baseball statistics. He became the student manager and tech advisor for the Indiana University baseball team in 2020. In 2022, he secured a tech fellowship with the St. Louis Cardinals and became a Milwaukee Brewers player development information assistant in 2023. In 2025, he became an advanced scout for the Washington Nationals, focusing on game plans and video operations. Finally, growing up in Mill Valley, Kenny Rosenberg played in the Mill Valley Little League and various travel clubs. A talented pitcher on the TAM High baseball team, he made the Cal State Northridge baseball team as a walk-on, excelling in college baseball. He was made a minor leaguer with the Tampa Bay Rays when the Tampa Bay Rays signed him in 2016. Reaching AAA ball, he moved to the Los Angeles Angels organization in 2021. Making it to the majors in 2022, he was up and down with the Angels through 2024. In 2025, he jumped to the Korean Baseball League, where he's still playing this year. So those are the 10 people who made it to the major leagues over a long course of Mill Valley history. While contemporary baseball institutions may provide recreation for kids and build talent for the few, they largely exclude adults from participation and lack the sense of community building the sport used to create for thousands of U.S. towns. While almost all the adult semi-pro teams that played in Marin and elsewhere in the U.S. no longer exist, there are a few exceptions. In Minnesota, town ball, capped by an annual state tournament, has been played since the 1920s. Since 1988, the Bay Area Men's Senior Baseball League has provided hardball playing opportunities for some adults. And in Marin, the Novato Knicks have been playing semi-pro baseball for 70 years against collegiate clubs and the few other surviving semi-pro adult teams. The San Rafael Pacifics preserve the feel of small-town baseball, but the players are all paid professionals. And recent MLB cutbacks in minor leagues have deprived many towns of a local team to root for, much less play for. If sports can have an impact on a sense of community, then do some sports build community better than others? It may depend on the values connected with each sport. This old George Carlin comedy routine illustrates the differences between baseball and football.
I'd like to talk a little bit about baseball and football. Starting with baseball. Baseball is different from any other sport in a lot of different little ways. For instance, in most sports, you score points or you score goals. In baseball, you score runs. In most sports, the ball or the object is put in play by the offensive team. In baseball, the defense puts the ball in play, and only the defensive team is allowed to touch the ball. In fact, in baseball, if an offensive player touches the ball intentionally, he's out. Also, most sports, the team is run by a coach. In baseball, the team is run by a manager. And only in baseball does the manager or the coach have to wear the same uniform the players do. Can you picture Bill Parcells in his New York Giants uniform? Now, baseball and football are different from one another in other kind of interesting ways, I think. First of all, baseball is a 19th century pastoral game. Football is a 20th century technological struggle. Baseball is played on a diamond, in a park, the baseball park. Football is played on a gridiron in a stadium, sometimes called Soldier Field or War Memorial Stadium. Baseball begins in the spring, the season of new life. Football begins in the fall when everything is dying. In football, you wear a helmet. In baseball, you wear a cap. Football is concerned with downs. What down is it? Baseball is concerned with ups. Who's up? Are you up? I'm not up. He's up. In football, the specialist comes in to kick. In baseball, the specialist comes in to relieve someone. In football, you receive a penalty. In baseball, you make an error. Whoops. Football has hitting, clipping, spearing, blocking, piling on, late hitting, unnecessary roughness, and personal fouls. Baseball has the sacrifice. Football is played in any kind of weather. Rain, sleet, snow, hail, mud. Can't read the numbers on the field, can't read the yard markers, can't read the players' numbers. The struggle will continue. In baseball, if it rains, we don't come out to play. I can't come out to play. It's raining out. Baseball has a 7th inning stretch. Football has the 2-minute warning. Baseball has no time limit. We don't know when it's going to end. We might have extra innings. Football is rigidly timed, and it will end even if we have to go to sudden death. In baseball, during the game in the stands, there's kind of a picnic feeling. Emotions may run high or low, but there's not that much unpleasantness. In football, in the stands during the game, you can be sure that at least 27 times you were perfectly capable of taking the life of a fellow human being. Preferably a stranger. And finally, the objectives of the two games are totally different. In football, the object is for the quarterback, otherwise known as the field general, to be on target with his aerial assault, riddling the defense by hitting his receivers with deadly accuracy, in spite of the blitz, even if he has to use the shotgun. With short bullet passes and long bombs, he marches his troops into enemy territory, balancing this aerial assault with a sustained ground attack which punches holes in the forward wall of the enemy's defensive line. In baseball, the object is to go home and to be safe. I hope I'll be safe at home. Safe at home.
You get a sense that there are a different set of values between the two sports. I don't know. I think baseball arguably provides a more positive set of values for American society. Yet the sport's claim as a national pastime, as you know, is really faded a lot over the decades in favor of football. In his recent book, Homestand, Will Bardenwerper laments the loss of small-town baseball. This isn't just a story about baseball, he writes. This is a story about America and where we go from here. We have lamented the closing of the mills and factories in small and mid-sized U.S. towns. Now the ballpark, that friendly gathering place where relationships are nourished in the grandstands, is under siege. The real magic, he argues, is in the bleachers, among the fans, in the shared food, drink, and intimate conversation in midsummer games, where gathering together to cheer your team made everyone's life just a little bit better. Those moments satisfy the hunger we all have for acceptance and friendship, a hunger made more acute in a lonelier and more fractious America. So let me end somewhat sentimentally with the about the loss of adult community semi-pro baseball with this observation by the historian John Thorne. Fundamentally, baseball is what America is not, but has longed or imagined itself to be. It is the missing piece of the puzzle, the part that makes us whole, a fit for a fractured society. While America is about breaking apart, baseball is about connecting. America, independent and separate, is a lonely nation in which culture, class, ideology, and creed fail to unite us. But baseball is the tie that binds. More than anything else, baseball is about hope and renewal, gloriously pulsing with the mystery of the seasons and of life itself. This great game opens a portal into our past, both real and imagined. It holds up a mirror showing us as we are. And sometimes baseball even serves as a beacon, revealing a path through the wilderness. Thank you for listening.
Are you going to take some questions?
Sure.
Okay. I'll do your pass the mic around.
Okay.
So baseball looked like a lot of fun. And what were the factors that led to its decline?
Got to. Thanks,
Yeah.
Jennifer.
So I think one thing is that college became a real center for.
Let me give you this one. I'll just go back and forth. There you go. Hello?
Yeah, I think one thing is that college became a real conduit for pro athletes, for major league athletes in various sports. And I don't think that baseball does a very good job in supporting college baseball. And part of it you could just see in the amount of fellowships that are available if you want to play college baseball. So if that's a stepping stone to playing into the pros, well, how many people get a chance to do it? So I think currently baseball gets 11 and a half scholarships for a team that's usually 25 or 30 players on the team. So almost no one gets a full scholarship. They're usually sort of dividing up those 11 scholarships. In football, there's 50 or 60 scholarships. Basketball, also, almost the whole team gets a scholarship. So I think what happens is that when people think about, well, you know, what sport am I going to play with the possibility that my athletic ability is going to help me get into college and be able to afford college, it's a lot more tempting, I think, if you're just generally athletic to play basketball or football. So I think that's part of it as well. I think there are some cultural things, though, that are going on, too. I think the country has changed a lot in the last 40 or 50 years. I think the values in the country have changed. And I know this is kind of abstract and it's kind of complicated, but somehow I think that football resonates more, and I'm sorry for all of you football fans out there. I think it resonates more with a lot of what's going on in society, and this began, we see this trend begin actually around the war in Vietnam, and I'm not sure that that's coincidental of the sort of trajectory that the country has taken. So between our foreign escapades and, you know, the military aspects which seem to resonate with football on the one hand, and you know, just the general polarity and competitiveness and confrontations and aggression. I'm just not sure that if sports reflect a set of values that baseball's just not resonating in the same way. I mean, that's just a tiny piece of what some people are talking about to try to figure this out. Why is that case? I'm sure I've left out a lot of other possibilities.
Got some more?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I just want to make a comment about the impact that baseball had on American society, especially in the 40s. During World War II, especially during the Battle of the Bulge, the Germans had placed in MP positions, military place positions, directing traffic for the Americans, and they were basically trying to spy, and they would also direct the Americans all in the wrong direction. And very typically how the American MPs would find out who the spies were is they'd throw baseball questions at them. Who won the World Series? What was this guy? This and that. And when the Germans couldn't answer the question, they got it wrong, they pretty much found themselves a spy. I also want to mention, too, when you and I talked a couple weeks ago, maybe my memory was off, but my friend Fred Mack here, who was in your show, and I played Little League in Mill Valley. And I remember when I was 8 years old, and I think it was 1958, Russ Hodges lived in Shannon Knolls. And opening day for Boyle Park, Russ Hodges and Joe DiMaggio showed up at the baseball field. And it was such a thrill for an 8-year-old. And Fred's a little older than I am, but he was probably there too. But I mean, I just peed in my pants when I saw Joe DiMaggio. And the story goes on, but I won't take the time. But anyway, I remember very specifically at Boyle Park. We also, by the way, when you're talking about Bayside, back in my high school days, we called that Project 17. It was a effort to create a whole beautiful baseball. He never really got off the ground, but a lot of games were played there too, right behind where the Mill Valley Community Center is. Okay, Connie, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many stories that either didn't know them or I didn't have pictures to go to. And so I tried to pull out as many as I could. But, Fred Mack, I mentioned Fred's in the audience here. Fred, do you have any stories you'd like to say?
Okay.
Fred can take up the next 3 hours.
Here you go, Fred.
I got a lot of stories, but not 3 hours worth. Appreciate you doing this, this Mill Valley baseball stuff and the semi-pro leagues. I got in at the end of it. In all those towns you mentioned, Petaluma, all those places. I hit San Quentin. I did them all. I did San Quentin with Chipper. He got in trouble over there, but I didn't. Remember that, Chipper? So anyway, there was a guy once that came out of the 2 a.m. club. In the old days, you didn't have to pay for help. Guys would just come and help you from around town. My dad arranged that the guy came out of the 2 a.m. club to help me with my hitting because I was too aggressive and I needed to learn something about hitting. So this guy gives me a set of directions of spread out. You'll see you hit the ball out, no stride. And yeah, I could do that. I was a strong kid. And he says, all right, take a little step back and you only have 2 or 3 inches step. That's it. Hit it out. Well, I could do that. So he says, you feel comfortable? I says, yeah, I feel pretty comfortable here. He says, good. He says, well, I used to play ball with a guy that hit like that. And I said, oh yeah, who's that? He says, Joe DiMaggio. Now this was a Mill Valley guy that had played for the Yankees in the World Series, won a ring. You would never know it. The guy's name I wrote down here, his name was Charlie Winslow, went by Butch, with the Yankees in 43, won the World Series in 47, got a ring. Some guys he played with, Joe DiMaggio, which he told me about, Yogi Berra, and Phil Rizzuto. Guys he played against, Jackie Robinson, Duke Snyder, and Pee Wee Reese. Those guys are all Hall of Famers that this guy from Mill Valley was playing for. He played for 3 years. I guess he was 16 and 13, but his ERA was 2.60, which isn't too bad. Guys would love to have that nowadays, okay? But here's a guy that was in town. You would never know it. And a lot of big leaguers are like that. And guys that have been in pro sports, they don't talk about it. They've done it, and that's kind of just the deal on it. Now, one more thing you might find is interesting is I had the opportunity. I was a halfway decent coach, so I coached United States teams in both Australia and Japan. I made 2 trips to Japan. And I know you're seeing a lot of Japanese players over here. So what's the story? Well, over in Japan, they do everything exactly the same way. I'm talking about the way they take infield practice. If you watch your pitchers throw, they all have the same checklist on all the pitches if you know what to look for when you watch a Major League Baseball. They are incredibly organized over there and incredibly disciplined, okay? So that when you see Japanese players, I went up against them twice. They're pretty good players, and they are extremely disciplined, and they know the game. The guys from Latin America, man, they're having at it. Don't they just have that and have some fun playing that game? That's okay to a point, okay? But in any event, the contrast, and I was in Australia, the contrast with the different countries, it's amazing to see. But that's why you're seeing so many Japanese players over here, is they got it organized, and believe me, they are intense. This guy sitting next to me, Chipper Collins, I played a lot of ball, and he hit leadoff for us at Tam High School. We won quite a few championships, and he was on 2 of the years that I was with him. And you wouldn't want a better guy playing center field for you, or a guy leading off. Chipper was aggressive, though we almost didn't get out of San Quentin one day together because of him, didn't get a hit. They bet cigarettes on him. We find out about that up in the gallery, the gun gallery up there when they're feeding us lunch. And anyway, we had a little scene there, but we got rid of the guy that was the problem, but I don't think Chipper wanted to go back anymore. That's a fact. Oh, no. Chipper.
Yeah, Fred, yeah, that's the truth. I'd like to mention some names just to put them in the record. The initial Mill Valley Little League. Guys like Lou Piver, Dave Broom, Steve Halterman, Norm Cruder, Frank Bernini, Bunky Robertson, Rick Reels, whose father was the first president of Mill Valley Little League, Brian Laurie and Peter Dornbach, Mike Cavanaugh and George Stuyvesant. In 1952, my family moved to Mill Valley. There was no Little League. 54 was the first Little League team. They were the Indians and the Yankees. I played on the Yankees. We played at Boyle. A year later, we played at the Mill Valley Little League ballpark, which was part of Eggers nursery. We had a big ballpark down that part of the town. and played there for the next 3 years.
Sycamore neighborhood, that's right.
Yeah, it's a Sycamore Park, exactly. And at that time, our ball games were broadcast by radio on KTIM by Ted Mitchell, who taught a lot of us oral English at Tam High. Went on to play at Tam with Freddie. Freddie was a couple of years younger than I, but we won MCL championships in 1960 and 61. And in 1963, I think, 1964, he and I played at the College of Marin, and we both made the all Golden Valley Conference team. Mill Valley and baseball were inextricably combined. The times we spent chasing balls, foul balls at Boyle Park, so we could get we brought the ball back, we could get a piece of bubble gum to chew. We would race down into the creek and grab the balls. It was great.
I thought it was free hot dogs.
It wasn't free hot dogs then, Ernie.
You guys are older than me.
Yeah, that's the truth. Anyway, this is the second time I've heard you speak, and I'm always impressed at your ability and your thoroughness and your presentation. I really enjoyed it.
Can I say one more thing, Claudia?
Okay, sure. Okay. There you go.
I apologize, but I just want to give you a frame of reference from a kid who grew up in Mill Valley. I moved here when I was 1 year old. My family moved out in '74. Anyway, a big deal for kids between, let's say, 8 and 15 or so is the Mill Valley Little League Parade. And it started right up here at Old Mill School. And we would have our little uniforms on, and the teams would all be together, and the blah, 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 and we'd march down Throckmorton, then down down Throckmorton, and then up to East Bytail. And it would end at Boyle Park, but that happened every year, and it was a big deal for all the kids in Mill Valley. It was almost bigger than Sequoia Theater.
Other questions? Anybody else want a question? Oh, no, There you go.
Thank you. Speaking of Little League and the changing perspectives on baseball, what's your feeling about travel ball for kids?
Well, travel ball is great. My son played travel ball, played on several travel ball teams, and it was really helpful to him. My concern about travel ball is that it's not inexpensive. It's expensive, and so the problem I think is that if you don't have resources, you don't necessarily play on a travel ball team, and it's so important now. It seems like if you are a talented player and you want to get recognized, you can't just be on your high school team. You have to be out there on some travel team so that you're seen and, of course, get in a lot more playing time. So I would say it's a good development in terms of developing talent. But it's a problem in terms of everyone being able to afford it. And just to get back to your earlier question, I think this is another ingredient. Is baseball an expensive sport to learn and get talented in as compared to playing football or basketball? I mean, basketball in particular is just, you need a hoop and an open space and a ball, and it seems relatively minor in terms of the kind of equipment and other resources you need in order to play. So my answer is that I have mixed feelings about it. It certainly was very valuable for my son, who went on to play at NYU. So, there's some success for him, certainly.
It's that way for all the sports now.
It may be. It may be.
Whatever it is.
Travel teams, yeah.
And that is an issue, is that economics, rule the roost, and so your kid gets a lot more opportunity.
Yeah, yeah.
The more money you can pour at it. They cost $3,000 to $5,000 a year.
Yeah.
That's an expense.
Yeah. Well, some of you may know about the First Base Foundation, which was founded by Noah and Marilyn Jackson. And Noah is one of the people who did get into the majors as a scout, at least. He was signed as a minor leaguer by the Cubs, and he played Mill Valley Little League. And the foundation has been providing resources to people who don't have the resources to enable people who otherwise wouldn't be able to play travel ball and other kinds of baseball opportunities. So when you have, a community that has those kind of resources that can spread them around, then I think that can be helpful, but not all communities have that kind of situation.
So we're going to wrap up because we have to leave the library by 8. And we want to give a really wonderful round of applause for Rob.